All right, we're good to go.
Hey, we're the Ben and Skin Show, and we want you to subscribe to our YouTube.
Hello, Internet, and welcome to the launch of Whisky Talk. I am Jeff Skidway to the Ben and Skin Show. You also see Big Ben Rogers, the handsome part of our show, hanging in this talk. And as well, a part of our team tonight are two of the esteemed members of Balcones Distilling down in Waco, which you've heard Ben and I talk about nonstop over the last year and a half or so. We have head distiller Jared Hempstead, who just took a sip of some water. And then we have Alex Elrod, who has so many titles. I've just been making up brand advocate. Is that the best title for you?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, good. We are off and running, and we're going to do this every couple of weeks or so. We're going to come at you at 7:30 on a Thursday night. And our goal is to help you not only know the story of Balcones, but kind of help you enjoy your whiskey experiences a little bit more by knowing the details behind it. Some of the things to look for in terms of what you're actually tasting and what you're smelling, and just enhance the overall experience, because the four of us talking to you love whiskey very, very much. And guys, Jared and Alex probably won't tell you as much as Ben and I will tell you how great it is, but it is truly extraordinary. So as we kind of ease our way into this, first of all, let's start with you, Jared. Why don't you tell the folks watching a little bit about your history with Balcones and the position that you're in?
Yeah, so I'm currently the head distiller. I started as a production manager. I didn't have any production to manage because I basically was just one of two or three people that were putting the distillery together by hand. I kind of fell into whiskey through home brewing and thought I was going to do that. Tried to do that a couple times, and ended up opening a craft beer bar here in town with a friend. And the more beer there was, all of a sudden beer was everywhere, and I kind of got tired of that. And had a good friend that had spent some time in Oxford and came back and turned me on to single malt. And it was just kind of no holds barred after that. I was just trying everything I could get. And this is, like 12, 13 years ago, 14 years ago. The selection in the grocery store, in the liquor store today is a lot bigger than it was back then. So I kind of made my way through all the scotch I could get in Waco, at least pretty quickly. I think I'm just one of those people that kind of DIY. I want to make stuff. I want to try my hand at things. I want to know more about the things that I like and I use and appreciate. And we started making whiskey. We weren't making whiskey in the garage because that would be illegal. But next thing I knew, we were looking for building, and at every stage, it just kind of seemed like we were just talking. We should do this. We should make some. Maybe we should do it commercially. We should go look for buildings. Next thing you know, we bought a pretty cheap building and tried to manage and juggle jobs while we're trying to get a distillery built on the side, until eventually it kind of became untenable, and I had to leave the bar job and get on full time, getting equipment built and getting plumbing done and masonry put around the fire, the burners and all that stuff. And it's kind of weird. I kind of slipped and fall. It's not a career path like, hey, here kids, if you want to become a distiller, do it like this, because I did it in a very accidental way.
Hey, Skin, I have a question.
Yeah, Ben.
I'm about to jump into this baby blue, and it's from August 19th, 2019. Jared, is this from a good day?
I would have preferred for us to have all had the same thing. I almost asked which batches y'all have.
What are you going with?
But I have a bottle of all of them, so I could go get that one.
Hey,
wow, must be nice.
But it's like,
also go this direction.
Like, which is your favorite child? Hopefully every batch we try to make every batch better. So I'm usually drinking the newest one. So if I went back, hopefully I'd feel like, no, there's always these incremental improvements. But
so which one?
I want to know if August 19th is a special day, and if it's not, make up an answer for me. That's incredible.
August 19th, October 19th. What was it?
August 19th, 2019.
August 19th.
Or July, or for the single malt, July 19th, 2018.
Yeah, so we always bottle on the 19th. We're bottling almost every day, so.
I got July 19th of 2018 on this Texas single malt.
Whoa.
Classic
Mine-
edition, bro.
Mine's from 2022, so I don't know how I got this, but
Alex is here from the future. Hey, Alex, what is your normal Balcones routine like? Because the very first time that Ben and I sat down with Jonathan, and we sat down with you and we started going through all the different expressions, which is still one of the best whiskey nights of my life. I feel like, man, wherever you go, you're educating people on the deliciousness of Balcones. That's a pretty fun job, I'd imagine.
yeah, it has its pros and cons. It's about 99% pros. I've been with Balcones for coming up on 4 years, which has been fun. It's fun to see the progression and change. Of course, my primary focus is more in the sales role, the sales team, I guess, more than, of course, Jared, fully production. But I kind of started, Drake. I started from the bottom, and then I'm wherever I am now. I'm not at the top. Drake and I aren't hanging out yet or anything. But I actually started before that. I worked for a local beer distributor. My mom worked for one of the local spirits and wine shops for 20 years. And my dad is actually still in the industry and distribution. So it really is in my blood. And I fell in love with Balcones just through a mutual friend who actually is now the distillery manager, Tommy, which I believe y'all have met
Absolutely
multiple times. So I started as a sales rep, really just trying to be an advocate for Balcones. And yeah, at this stage, I'm traveling quite a bit more. I do live here in Dallas, Oak Cliff specifically. So Tum Tum, speaking of music, Dallas rap for anybody that listens to anything like that. But
Cadillac music.
there you go, Caprice. So I do travel quite a bit now. I help as an advocate, kind of far and wide. I focus on the single barrel program quite a bit too. I wear many hats.
Your hat game. You got the strongest hat game of any one of my friends. Your hat game is so awesome.
Dang. Well, I think I'm done. I'm gonna leave now. So that was great.
I asked Alex if we've got a really awesome, really historic hat maker here in town. It's called Standard Hat Works. Legendary. I mean, everybody from Samuel Jackson, that silly hat that I'm blanking on his name. Panthers QB.
Cam Newton.
You know that crazy hat. Pharrell had one too.
Yeah.
That's a Standard Hat Works hat. This guy just did all this really cool custom hat work.
Yeah.
But I was at a tasting thing where Alex and two other of our reps all had cowboy hats on, and they're, what's it called? Silver belly?
Yeah, the color is silver belly. Yeah.
And I asked him if I got him like a custom, legendary, like handmade, made just for him hat, but it had to be black, would he wear it? He said probably not.
Oh man, you only wear silver belly?
Yeah. I haven't ventured out. I'm not that. I haven't yet.
It sounds like you have access to your own haberdasher, and yet you're staying with one color. I feel like you should expand your repertoire there, Alex. What are we doing here?
I mean, you're probably right. I probably should venture out, but I haven't yet. I just haven't.
Wait a minute, Ben. Are you already drinking Baby Blue right now?
Well, I went ahead and went in on the single malt, man.
He skipped.
I mean,
Okay.
it was just, I had the ice ball, I had the glass, I have Jared himself here, the maker of these whiskeys. And I think Baby Blue is my favorite. And I think it's probably Brimstone or Rumble are my second and third. But this is the Crown flagship one, right? This is the one that wins all the awards, and it's easily could be number one itself. And
Well, dude, let's start there. Well, I was thinking we go Baby Blue first, but Ben's setting the tone. Set the tone.
Set the tone.
So this is what Texas single malt looks like when it's in a glass that you should get from Balcones. This is an ideal drinking glass. So Jared, lead the way here. Let's talk about this beautiful masterpiece.
So yeah, when we started the distillery, the goal was always to make single malt. Single malt was the kind of whiskey that we fell in love with, the whole thing that kind of started us on our whiskey journey. This is a pretty cool, not only is it really significant in our history as far as some competitions and some recognition that we got for it that helped kind of put us on the map beyond just being kind of a local title distillery in the middle of Texas that some Texans knew, but not even that many, to kind of being national and international. A lot of what's really cool about this to me is it's a really nice marriage of what inspired us, which was the Scottish tradition, largely Highland, and aspects of the American tradition. So the Scotch side of what we do, our stills are Forsyth pot stills, very traditional Scottish whiskey making stills. That, by the way, we use for everything. We'll get into that when we talk about other whiskeys, how that affects how they turn out.
Okay.
We use M1 yeast, which is a very classic. A lot of Scotch is made using that exact same yeast strain. We do combine it with a beer yeast strain as well. So there's 2 yeasts going into our single malt fermentations. That's also British ale yeast. And the grain we use, the barley variety we use is called Golden Promise, that probably in the heyday from most of the 70s and about halfway through the 80s even, was kind of the barley variety of choice for Scotch making. And it's not the highest yield. There are definitely barley varieties that give you more alcohol per pound. But no one moved away from it because it wasn't delicious. They moved away from it for efficiency reasons, for monetary reasons. So in a way, we're kind of making the single malt, the liquid that comes off the stills, we're making it as kind of an homage to a way of making Scotch that's gone. But then when we get to barreling, this product is migrated a little bit, and there's always a little bit of used barrels in there, which is more how Scotch is matured. Most American whiskey, people know, goes into new, like virgin charred oak. And the last few blends of the single malt have actually gone that direction, where we're not really using almost any of the used barrels anymore. So the wood profile, the density, the tannin, all the wood spice and sugar that people are used to getting out of other American whiskeys, i.e. bourbon and rye, the maturation is very similar to that. We're just starting with a completely different base spirit that's inspired by kind of the beginnings of our whiskey love journey.
When you go out and about, Alex, and you're preaching the gospel of the Texas single malt, what are some of the things that you try to kind of convey to people about not only the history of this particular spirit, and it's obviously very decorated, but there's obviously different types of whiskey fans, why they might be looking for this particular type of spirit?
I think for us, we're still so hands-on. I think it was Jared really that kind of started saying that we've got levels of being mechanized, but we're not robotic. So everybody is still incredibly hands-on, whether that be from the brew house all the way to Jared, Gabe, and Johnson and all the guys with blending and on the stills. So there's still a lot of full sensory basis to it. Everybody's handling it, they're smelling it, they're always tasting and looking and actually feeling density, oiliness, things that maybe some other distilleries don't do. Not to say what they're doing is wrong. I think there's just an extra step of a lot of nuances of care to it, on top of all of the incredibly fantastic approaches to production that are can sometimes be totally confusing, and I completely understand that, but they're important to produce something that's at the end of the day just really delicious to drink. And we're not pulling any wool over anybody's eyes. There's no additives, there's no sweeteners, no sugars, no color. I mean, this is just really good distillate and really high quality barrels. So what we're providing is something fun, and at the end of the day is really great to share with each other because of the human element, and that we're so connected to the whiskey. We're so connected to our friends and fans, I guess, if you will. So I think it's just this symbiotic relationship of connectivity along the way. And at the end of the day, we don't really take ourselves too seriously. Again, I'm just kind of like a voice for the distillery. But the level of, just humility is pretty amazing. I mean, Jared, he just won Master Distiller of the Year at Icons of Whiskey in New York. And I mean, he probably could have come with like a robe and a cape, something. I don't know. There's not a trophy for it, but I mean, it's pretty amazing. And I think that's just a testament to really the craft of it all. So, I mean, there's a lot of really intense nuances along the way. And Jared, it's always fun to get him cornered so that you can peel back the layers of that onion, especially when you're looking at like cooperage. It's a lot of things that a lot of people don't really treat like we do. With ISC, the cooperage that we use, we have a lot of really fun, fantastic barrels that most people don't realize that we have. So yeah, there's a lot of things. I could ramble for a while.
Dude, I love listening to you ramble, and it's also fascinating. It's what's really cool about whiskey. And even if you're, if you're winning Master Distiller of the Year, or you just bought your first bottle of Balcones, there's different points along the adventure for everybody to jump on. And that's what I like. I like that you guys, like, skin is way advanced to me with the, the defined Scotch palate. I'm a guy who loves whiskey, but I'll drink an old fashioned, I'll mix it up. I'll try different things. And I've never felt any judgment or whatever. It's always like, hey, you drink it however you want to drink it. And I just think that we have a lot of listeners on our radio show who have tried Balcones for the first time. The feedback is insane. And Jared, I'm just wondering for you, what is that like for you? Do you kind of block it all out? Because I know you're not a big guy. Hey, let me tell you about my awards. I know you get really uncomfortable when we start telling you how awesome you are. But what is that like for you to see so many people getting on board and like really enjoying what you're making?
Yeah, it's not. I think me and a lot of the guys, we've been really fortunate to kind of stack our whole crew with people that are here for the right reasons. Whiskey's not the only thing that I love and I'm super interested in, but when I am super interested in something, I commit pretty hard. I don't really kind of want to play around. I kind of have things that there's things that you don't dabble in. And then there's things that you go like all the way with, for me at least. There's kind of not a whole lot of stuff in between. So I don't feel like we've achieved much, and that's not false humility or anything. That's I don't think I have imposter syndrome, but maybe I do. But when I come in, my goal is to be the best at this I can be, which means always learning, always adapting, always trying harder, getting better. And this is such a new thing for Texas. Texas has had Baby Blue was the first, ever made in Texas whiskey on the shelf. It wasn't the first whiskey laid down. Dan Garrison had his permit out in High, Texas, and he had been laying down some whiskey before Baby, which is a very young whiskey, but it's still such a brand new thing. It's like we're still figuring out. The oldest whiskey in state, showed up 11, 12 years ago. Mm-hmm. Like, man, we have no clue. I mean, we have a clue, but I feel like we're just starting to kind of peel back the first layers and kind of discover what kind of whiskey can be made here, what kind of whiskey this place is inclined to make, what kind of whiskey it wants to nurture, and how it wants to mature whiskey and all that stuff. So I don't have to try really hard I do appreciate it. It's really nice. Industry awards and competitions and stuff are really validating on a professional level because you're doing this all the time. And when someone else who really knows this industry and what we do, and really has a lot of experience, an experienced palate, knows a lot, when they also are saying, yeah, this is good stuff. That's really nice to hear. When your mom tells you that you got a great jump shot and you're going to be pro someday, it's not quite the same,
Yeah.
But yeah, we were just talking about this the other day. If the bigger philosophical questions, and I don't know if you guys, have these kind of conversations around sports, but what are we doing here? If it's just we make something tasty, like that's okay, I guess. I wouldn't find that to be the most fulfilling thing, but even at a tiny, tiny, tiny level, what we're doing has to make somebody's life better in some small way, right? For it to be worth doing. And if that is an old fashioned, if it's on the rocks, if it's in Coke, I love getting nerdy and talking about what happens when you put water, when you ice it, when you do this, how acid's going to play with it, like that stuff's super fun, and it's all different. There are different ways of consuming it. It's going to do different things. But if the goal is just to bring something into people's lives that makes their life is better because it's in it, then yeah, there's not a whole lot of room for judging how anybody wants to drink it, right? I mean,
yeah. One thing I want to say, Jared, is you're talking about that, because Ben and I talk about this all the time. When you have something that you can appreciate on different levels, it creates really something for everybody. There's going to be people, I really connected earlier when you're talking about when I get involved in something, boy, I jump in 100%, because, I'm the same way in a lot of regards. If I'm really into something, I'm really into something. And when you throw yourself into something, there's a lot of different levels to appreciate. And I think that's even the reason why it's worth us doing Whiskey Talk here, because there's a lot of different things to appreciate about Balcones. I think the ethos of the distillery, but also all the different expressions, and it's all great. And I think it's really cool that early on, I remember, when we sat down with Alex and Jonathan the first time, there were a lot of different things to appreciate. And so, we're talking about the Texas single malt. We'll pivot over to Baby Blue here in just a second. But I love all the different unique expressions within the Texas single malt family. I was telling Alex, the peated is that's my favorite, and so like even within, what you guys cultivated with the Texas single malt, there's a lot of different levels just within that one expression in which you can experience it and enjoy it.
Yeah, actually, I was just talking with your brother, which I do often. And we were getting philosophical, like we have to do sometimes, to try and put words around the whys of why this matters and why do it and how to communicate that to people. But I can't remember where I heard the analogy. I think I read it somewhere, probably in college. But the guy was trying to make the metaphor he used was the way a dancer, or in y'all's case, an athlete, understands and appreciates the body and how it moves, as opposed to maybe like a surgeon. They both have very, very in-depth, but from very different perspectives of looking at the human body and what it does and how it does it. And neither one of them obviously is any more or less valid than the other. But yeah, we were talking about how I don't know, even for like what you guys talk about way more often than whiskey, I don't know. It just occurred to me the other day, and I wasn't that good. I played through high school, wasn't good enough to go even walk on, much less, play in college, like for any kind of money. But I don't know how people watch basketball who've never played. Like, I don't know what that experience is like. Like when you see someone cut really hard and then try to cross over the other direction, like my ankle knows what that feels like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's a similar, I think there's a nugget in there somewhere of even why this matters to me. I like whiskey so much, and I'm put together that way. Yes, same thing. I want to know what a hard cut feels like,
Yeah.
And I think Jared keeps alluding to basketball because he's a Spurs fan. So for anybody, I mean,
that's going to do it for this edition of Whiskey Talk.
Yeah.
You know what? It's funny. One of the things, obviously Ben and I are about as big of Mad fans as you can possibly be. But through the Dirk journey and all of that, my appreciation for the Spurs is incredibly high for a team that's supposed to be our hated enemy. It's a great organization, and I don't doubt that a fantastic distiller would be a fan of that fantastic organization. All right, Ben, I think it's Baby Blue time. What do you think?
Yes, and there's a lot of people watching this across multiple platforms, and lots of comments. There are a lot of folks drinking Baby Blue. So if you're watching this and you want to just tell us what you're drinking, we'd love to see your comments. We'd love to know what you're sipping on tonight during a little whiskey discussion. And let's see here.
And Ben, also questions too. If folks want to fire in some questions for Jared and Alex, we'll certainly do that.
Yeah. Hey, actually, Ben, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
What you definitely have seemed to have gravitated towards baby blue.
Yes.
And there's not a trick question or trick, maybe there's a trick answer, I don't know, but how was this the whiskey that really, kind of cemented your connection when we sampled everything? I think we actually tried maybe 7 whiskeys that day.
Yeah.
When we were first hanging out, but why baby blue?
So it was so unique when I tried it for the first time. I had never tasted anything like it, and it just, there's something about it, whether it's the corn, whether it's the sweetness, maybe it's the how it's aged for such a short duration. To me, it just struck a chord with me. It was just a hardcore connection, and I just gravitated towards it. And I became like unhappy if I was drinking somewhere and they didn't have it. I started
I've been with the man when he has demanded baby blue. I've been with the man when he's demanded it at places.
there are a lot of restaurants where I would just give them shit. I'm like, man, and I would, and this is what I drink. Why don't you have this? Even Nick and Sam's, they didn't have it. And I was like, guys, what are we doing? Like, Samir's the greatest chef in America. And Samir was like, why don't we have this? And they got it. And so now when I go to Nick and Sam's, not that I go all the time, but the bar manager goes, Ben, can I get you a baby blue? I'm like, yes, you can get me a baby blue. It got to the point where if we were going to a party in the neighborhood, I just would bring my own bottle of baby blue or a flask, just because I didn't trust people. I didn't want to drink anything else once I started drinking baby blue. And I don't know if it's the sweetness or the uniqueness or what it is, but I'll venture out and I'll try other things. Like I love the smokiness of Brimstone, and I love the sweetness of Rumble. And they're all fantastic, and I'll drink different ones at different times depending on how I'm feeling. But now everyone in my neighborhood knows, and so everyone's got baby blue. If I go to a restaurant that I frequent or a house that I go to a lot, they've got the baby blue. So I don't know why I fell so head over heels in love with baby blue. Can you guys tell me?
I mean, Jared should. I'd be curious to hear what Jared, thinks of the complexity of blending. And of course, when I say blending, I really mean marrying of barrels together to produce a batch. Because the complexity of that with such a youthful spirit is got to be a bit of an arduous task, because you're kind of fighting some flavor profiles. But I think that there's something to a lot of distilleries. They chill filter, or of course they don't use copper pot stills, which again, you can kind of see at least one of the helical line arms of our new stills that we got a few years ago. But I think kind of the density of our spirits really kind of trumps a lot of whiskeys that are on the market, whether they are craft or whether they're the big boys, which we do still drink as well. We have great, respect and connectivity to, and homage to some of the distilleries that have been doing it for hundreds of years. But I think there's a level of taking something that's maybe seen as corn whiskey, like how could that be any good? And then running this through copper pot stills, and then again with a lot of care in order to make something as drinkable as it is, with a rich oily density that is really drinkable to anybody at a slightly higher proof. I mean, I feel like there really isn't there isn't anything else on the market like it, and so it stands out, in the forest as something that's, I want to climb that tree. That's cool. Hell yeah, let's do that. I'll try that.
I want to ask about that uniqueness to Jared, though. Did you set out with a plan to make this particular spirit this particular way, or how did you guys stumble upon this baby blue phenomenon?
Yeah, so baby blue is one of the first things we won an award with, but it's corn whiskey. I love doing this even when I'm out doing, education or like whiskey clubs, or like, be down at 7 Grand with their whiskey club, or even in New York or whatever. And I always love asking people to raise their hand if they've ever gone into a bar and asked for, to see what the list of corn whiskey looks like, and nobody ever raises their hands. But so in some ways we didn't dabble in the corn whiskey category because it was low hanging fruit, but historically there's about 3 different products that you can find at a decent liquor store. You're going to find mellow corn, You're going to find Platte Valley, which is in the little ceramic jug. It's going to make you feel like a moonshiner, and I think that stuff's like $17 or $14 or something. And then you're going to see stuff in like mason jars that's white, right?
Mm-hmm.
So corn whiskey is not a highly respected thing here, even though it makes up the majority of bourbon. Bourbon wouldn't happen without it. So we just thought, there has to be a way to do this better. What if someone treated corn? The hypothesis was, if you treated corn the way the Scots treat barley, could we do something a little more delicate, understated, elegant, drinkable, approachable? And so the very first step, of course, was, well, what corn are we going to use? Most corn whiskey and almost all bourbon made in America, especially in Kentucky, is going to be made with just yellow dent corn, number 2. Agricultural products, especially grain, a lot of things get graded. Most of this isn't even human grade corn. This isn't food grade. It's not meant to end up in food products. And it's just been done forever. And, whiskey comes out of the excess that farmers, whether it was people making brandy from leftover apples in the orchard, or, you've got stuff that's going to go bad, and you run it through and make a beverage out of it so you don't lose all those calories and all that money at the end of the season. So it makes sense. If you're growing feed corn to make a little whiskey at the end of the season, makes sense. We just wanted to do better than that. We thought surely we can up the ante a little bit. And really it was a lot of just kind of culinary inspiration. Texas and the rest of the Southwest, obviously blue corn, especially 12, 14 years ago. I feel like you saw a lot of Demerara, raw sugar. You saw a lot of blue corn in cuisine. And so it's kind of a no-brainer to start with something, that is grown here out in West Texas for us. So not only is it grown here, but just has a cultural place with the palate of Texas and the rest of the Southwest. And so as far as the texture thing, I think mouthfeel is some people, super whiskey nerds, some people hate that word, but there's a texture to anything in your mouth.
Right.
And he's right. We're not using column stills. Column stills are a lot more industrial. You end up with a lot less body. We're also not chill filtering, which is a process where you cool the whiskey down, you run it through a filter. There's all these fatty acids and oils and stuff that are in whiskey. They settle out when it gets cold, they get stuck in the mesh, and the rest of it goes through. But they literally do have aromas and flavors and textures that you're removing. And so we just wanted to make something that actually tastes like what it's made from. I love bourbon. And then even our single malt is really heavy on wood. We could go talk to Jimmy Russell or Jim Rutledge or any of these like Bourbon Hall of Fame guys, and they'll say something along the lines of somewhere between 60 to 80% of the flavor, the final flavor in a bottle of bourbon is from the barrel. And I love woody whiskeys, but with this specifically, we wanted the original raw material to really come through at the end. And Alex is right. In the blending process, we are always looking for whether it's fresh masa, if it's corn chips, if it's popcorn oil, a butteriness. I like it when it just implies a little bit, like, especially on the finish, if there's enough tannin and if it's sweet enough, it kind of almost implies like a sweet tea a little bit.
Ooh, yeah.
It can almost be a little minty, like not quite eucalyptus, but tea tree oil, something along
herbaceous.
those lines.
Yeah.
So I got one for you guys, and this is a question that was asked by somebody watching the stream right now. Thank you for watching and supporting us. If you like whiskey, or somebody who does like whiskey and they missed this live, please share the link to any whiskey connoisseurs out there, because I think this is a really special show that we have going here. But Jamie Connors is watching, and Jamie says, I'd like to know what each of your favorite bottle is and why. And I want to ask all three of you guys. And we'll start with you, Alex. We'll go Alex again and then finish with Jared. What is your favorite bottle and why?
Ooh.
Of our stuff?
Of our stuff, or just I'm assuming. Yeah.
If you want to give me, how about this? Give me your favorite bottle of Balcones and then your favorite non-Balcones bottle. Give us one of each.
So my favorite bottle of Balcones is this whiskey
Oh yeah, that's great.
called Mirador.
Yeah, kick ass.
And you can kind of see a little bit of a difference when we're talking about like maturation and barrel character. But these start their lives more or less exactly the same with Golden Promise. But this is a single malt, unpeated. This is by far my favorite whiskey that we've ever made.
Why?
It's really beautiful. The fact that really anybody in Texas can make something that it's this robust, this delicate, this drinkable at cask strength is remarkable. There's a lot of amazing ties with Jared, and then a wonderful human by the name of Zach who passed away last year. That was Jared's partner, along with distillation and blending, that really helped make this come to life. And so there's a lot of emotional connections to this whiskey, but at the end of the day, it's just a really damn good whiskey. And the fact that someone in Texas you can see other bottles through this. I mean, it's really lovely, really delicate. It's a fantastic whiskey. And this is actually from our 10th anniversary. So if anybody ever sees this out in the wild and they see this, the X on the bottom, that's for the 10th anniversary. We're actually about to launch this year's variation. So a little bit of a cheers, 2-year hiatus on that. But as far as my, I really don't, I drink other things, not often, but anyways. I was actually just having some conversations with some folks about Glendronach, and I think right now, at least Glendronach 15 Revival comes in a green tube. It's going to be a little bit of a higher price point. It's sub 100, but it's also a single malt that's really, really fun and really cool. I think I gravitate more towards single malts than I do bourbons and ryes. Nothing wrong with those, but I tend to gravitate towards malt products. So yeah, I'll go that direction.
All right, Skin, what about you? Give me your favorite bottle of Balcones, and then tell us your favorite non-Balcones bottle.
Okay, so I'll go opposite end to the spectrum. I mentioned this. I think I mentioned this earlier, and then I mentioned on an After Dark. Generally my favorite expressions of the Balcones are the Texas single malt, and then when I find, like my buddy Adam was sending in a text earlier, I believe it's pronounced Brujeria or the Brujeria. He was
Witchcraft, right?
What's that?
Witchcraft? Is that what it means?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. And he was asking questions about that, but I like that, there's even within the Texas single malt, there's unique. Oh yeah, there it is right there. But the bottle that I have loved the most that you guys have done is the peated. I just think it's extraordinary. Like, you guys make a lot of really great stuff where I'm like, damn. And I think Jonathan and Alex will tell you, very early on, I do love whiskey. I'm not some expert, but I know what I like. And so, I maybe had a little bit of a stigma towards Texas whiskeys. You were talking about the short history, and I was so blown away when I tasted y'all's stuff. I was just truly excited that Ben and I were going to have a chance to be associated with you guys. And the reason is because of a product like the peated. That's just outrageously good. And I would recommend, whenever Ben and I are meeting people for the first time, they say, well, what should I try? My first question is always, well, what do you like to drink?
Right.
Yeah. There are so many different things that you can recommend to people. And when I have friends in my circle that are, I don't want to call them Scotch snobs, but guys that are really kind of snooty about that stuff, I'm like, bro, try the peated, or really anything within that Texas single malt. And I'm like, you will be blown away. But when I was first kind of learning more about whiskey and the differences and where it comes from and how it's made and some of those stuff and the flavor profiles, one of the ones that I got really, really into that used to be easier to find than it is now. It used to be, you could always find it. But I loved Blanton's. I thought that was a great bourbon that a lot of bars had. You could find it in most liquor stores, and it felt like it was, I don't want to say high end, but a nicer product. And it was very rare that I would, share that with somebody and they wouldn't be blown away by it. So that was one of my first favorite bourbons when I was first trying to explore different styles and find out what's best for me. But man, I would recommend that peated to anybody in the world, no matter what their history with whiskey is. That's just exceptional.
So
So we're a lot older than you guys, but I think we are. You sure? You sure? Wait, what year did you graduate?
94.
Oh,
94. Yeah. Come on, man. You're a pup. We graduated in '89. We're old men.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, same here.
Shut up. So back in the day, and I don't know, Jared, if you're old enough to remember this, there used to be this stockbroker commercials, and his name was E.F. Hutton.
Yeah.
And it was like when E.F. Hutton talks, and they're at a party, and everyone's hanging out, partying, and then E.F. Hutton's going to talk about stocks he likes, and everybody shuts up, and the music stops. They're like, "What's he going to say?" So I'm super curious about what you're going to say. What is your favorite Balcones bottle and favorite non-Balcones bottle?
You're putting him on the spot. I'm engaged here. I'm curious to see how this goes.
Big.
So it's probably gonna sound like the classic snobby collector whiskey asshole thing to say, but you mentioned Brujeria, so that's a heavily sherried. That was finished in PX, which is Pedro Jimenez sherry, and also Oloroso, which Glendronach that Alex mentioned. That's how their whiskeys are aged. And I love sherried whiskey. Glendronach has been one of my favorites in the last few years. I'm really enjoying their stuff. But I kind of have two answers because I realized I was going to mention a bottle that is completely unobtainable. And I always hate it when people do that. So my attainable bottle that I might even put down as my like desert island, gun to your head. You can take as much of one whiskey as you want, to drink the rest of your life, would probably be Glenfarclas 12. Anybody who thinks they like things like Macallan, Aberlour, it's not as heavily sherried by a long shot as Glendronach. They're finishing in sherry, whereas Glendronach is doing full maturation in sherry. But Farkless 12 to me was a game changer. It's affordable. You can tell if you're into design that they haven't changed their artwork and their labels probably since like '68. It looks horrible, which is why it's still affordable. Don't tell anyone. Just go enjoy it for yourself. But the Brujeria, our heavily sherry one, was going to be it was on deck. But so my actual legitimate two favorites, I will never forget. I was outside of Boston for a whiskey event with a friend of mine, Robin Robinson, who used to work for Compass Box as a whiskey writer and educator. And we had a bottle of 23-year-old Lochside. Lochside is a closed, or what they call a silent distillery in Scotland. No longer producing. I think they stopped producing in the late 80s. And they never sold. All of their stuff was distilled to sell to blenders anyway. So it was either going to Johnny Walker or Dewar's. I don't know who was buying, but they didn't have their own brand. They were just a place that made whiskey and sold it to blenders. So the only bottles that exist are independent bottlers. This company called Lombard used to have a series called the Jewels of Scotland that were USA exclusive single barrels and some small blends. But I have this 23-year-old, and I'm sitting there with whiskey guys. I drink whiskey all the time. And sometimes these things just happen. You just don't know when these moments are just going to pop up. You can't chase them. You can't try to force them. They're just going to happen. But we were sitting there at this super weird they said it was the longest running pub in America.
Oh, cool.
George Washington stayed there the night before they crossed the Delaware, apparently. There's like 12 rooms. I can't remember the name of the place. There's like 12 rooms upstairs, a little restaurant downstairs, and a bar. And apparently all the soldiers were all outside in tents, but him and some of the generals were up in the rooms, whatever. But we've had dinner. We've been doing this whiskey event. There was whiskey guys. People just are pulling stuff out of their trunk and bringing it to the fire, and we're just hanging around having whiskey by the fire. And that bottle, yeah, something happened. I love telling people that's, I've been asked many times, how do you know? Or what is it, like what boxes get checked? And for me, as someone who is overly analytic and critical about whiskey daily and has to be, it's when that doesn't happen. When sometimes flaws jump out at you, or even the positive attributes, they're not so enmeshed, like maybe they stick out a little bit and they're obvious. It's like, whoa, this is so fruity, it's cool. But if I'm sitting there going, oh my God, this is unbelievable. And someone goes, what do you like about it? And if I'm like, I am not sure. That's usually a good sign because my brain has gone to a completely different mode. And the whiskey has to be exceptional to allow me to even do that, because otherwise I'm nitpicking things. I'm dissecting, I'm thinking about components. So I went to the liquor store the next day that the guy had brought that bottle from. And I think they had 2 or 3 left. And I bought them all. And I have one left unopened.
Wow.
And I don't know what I'm ever going to do about it.
When me and Ben come down to Waco, you're going to break it open with us.
Right. Yes, we will finish it that night.
So you're talking about.
So that was the lock side. I mean, I can grab it for you if you want to see it, but that was, it's a distillery that's long. I mean, it's gone. You know, they don't make whiskey anymore. And that's part of the nostalgia, but I didn't know that when I smelled it and tasted it. I found that out afterwards, and I was like, well, that sucks.
Hold on though. For the Balcones bottle you're about to pick, it's got to be one that people watching can still get. Is that fair? Otherwise, we could send you down a trail that we got to have something that people watching.
Right.
Aaron's about to make a recommendation of something they can actually get.
So what's still out there? Peated is still out there, right?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Peated's out there a little bit. Alex is right. The Mirador is about to go out. The second bottling. We did it in 2018. And we just finished the other blend, the second blend this year, and it's about to get picked up and go out to liquor stores. I think part of the reason Alex likes that so much, and a lot of the reason some of us in house are really enamored with it, is just because it's so different from what we normally do. It's like if you make stuff, most of our stuff is really big. Baby Blue is a good exception too, but most of it's huge, it's dense, the proof is high, it's just loaded with flavor. And Mirador is something that I think a pretty experienced whiskey drinker you can pick apart nuances in it, but you don't have to. Baby's kind of the same. It's not demanding your attention, but if you want to give it that level of attention, you're more than welcome to do it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the Tim Duncan, if you will, of it's not going to demand your attention. He's just going to slowly beat you.
Championship.
Okay, so wait, you were talking about an experience you had, making memories, and did you mention it was around a campfire?
No, that was there was a fireplace like in the hotel. There was a fireplace. Yeah.
Because I do put making memories with Balcones for whatever reason. I connect the two because you're with friends, you're enjoying something that's handcrafted and very well made. And I love the idea of being around a campfire, sharing, making memories with friends and stuff. And for whatever reason, that's why I'm bouncing all over the place. I love Brimstone, and you taste it when you drink it. You taste some smokiness, and it's so faint, but it's as if you are at a campfire with your closest friends. And you're making memories, and it's the perfect weather, and the sun is setting, and it's gorgeous, and you can just get that slight smokiness. It's not overwhelming, but it's just a beautiful night of sipping on whiskey with your friends, and you're getting that smokiness. So,
did you just replace Jonathan with that?
I'm just curious.
Beautiful.
Do you like make this while there's a campfire at the distillery? I mean, how the hell do you make this?
That's literally the only, anything remotely close to an industry secret that we've got is how we smoke.
Okay, cool, all good.
Good job, man.
Sorry.
Jeez.
The biggest differences are, for anyone who likes smoky whiskey, if you're talking peated Scotch, so they're smoking with peat as the fuel source. So this is smoked with scrub oak. Literally, the guy we buy our wood from is every other client he has is a barbecue joint. So he travels around the state taking wood to barbecue places. And second of all, so wood oak smoke instead of peat smoke. And then we're smoking the liquid itself, not the grain, and then turning it into whiskey. So we've already distilled it. It's the same distillate that goes into Baby Blue, the Blue Corn Bourbon, any of our Blue Corn products. It goes in barrel, it gets matured for a pretty wide range of time. Sometimes we use whiskey as young as 9 months. Sometimes it's 2 or 3 years old, whatever it takes to get to the right spot. Then it gets smoked, and in our little contraption that we built. And yeah, it's a big boy. It's tough. Smoke is weird. Smoke kind of hangs around. I don't know about you guys. I love, like any decent human being should, I really do love a good brisket.
Mhm.
But have you ever had it like too many times, like in a week, and then you kind of feel like our palate's response to something like smoke, even when we're trying to blend smoky whiskeys, it's crazy that it turns out your brain turns off. You have to kind of keep upping the ante, you know?
Yeah.
It turns into white noise really quick.
It's like there's a blanket over your palate at some point.
Yeah. So blending the smoky whiskeys is really tough because you start out the day and they all seem really smoky, and by the end of the day you can't tell at all.
It's like drinking an IPA before trying to drink a lager.
Yeah, right. You don't want to go back, right? Okay, so one of the things in a second we'll tell you what we're going to do on the next session, because I think what we'd like to encourage people to do is be able to have the balcones on hand that we're going to be talking about when we do the next session here in a couple weeks. But if you will indulge me on nerding out right quick, I'm going to ask each one of you guys. We're going to go hypothetical world. I'll do Baby Blue for Ben and Alex, and I'll do Texas Single Malt for me and Jared. And I'll start with you, Alex. Ben can start thinking. You're going to be drinking Baby Blue, however you want to drink it, whether it's neat or on the rocks, or if you want to mix with something, whatever. And you're going to be enjoying it with a long lost friend, and you can have at your disposal any music that's ever been made. What is the perfect record to throw on with your long lost buddy and sit down and enjoy Baby Blue the way that it's supposed to be enjoyed? Jared, you be thinking about Texas Single Malt. Ben, I'm coming to you on Baby Blue. But Alex, you're on the spot first.
Damn it,
you're in a record store that's got every piece of wax ever. And you're going to take it and you're going to put it on this turntable, and you're going to sit on a fantastic chair and sip on it and enjoy it.
So, okay. Hear me out on this. I'm gonna have here's the thing. The big thing here is that the volume it's low. So it's enough to be like you feel the like a drive from it, but it's not overwhelming. And it's gonna be Stevie Ray Vaughan. Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Ooh.
Yeah, just you don't want it to be overwhelming. So that's the volume's down a little bit.
Are you saying that because you're living in Oak Cliff these days? Is there like a hidden layer of Oak Cliffness to this?
I mean, I don't know, maybe. I mean, you got to support local, even
Absolutely.
if it's, short history. Yeah, I don't know, but it's also just like really good. So that's why you want to rock out to it. You don't want to have it cranked. So, but it's just like a good subtle, just pulse and vibe. Plus it's Stevie Ray Vaughan, right?
Absolutely. I wouldn't mind requesting Little Wing, the Hendrix cover he does while you're there. All right. So now let's.
Oh yeah, Alex, is it because that was going to be my next question? Is it because you're at a record store that doesn't have any Hendrix records that you have to listen to that one?
Oh, support local.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Not in Seattle right now or wherever Hendrix is from. All right, let's now go to Ben, who is standing by. Long lost friend comes stumbling in, and you've got Baby Blue on hand. You want to enjoy it with what's the perfect record to put on as you enjoy you some Baby Blue?
Ooh, that's such a great question.
Thanks,
the other night we were hanging out, and Skin had this play. Skin was DJing, and it just kept, we were hanging out, and he was choosing the music, and I kept going, "What's that song? What's that song? What's that from? What's that from? I love that song. Oh my God." And so every time I asked him, it was on this playlist that he had. And so this is a playlist he created on Spotify called Chili Chill. And the whole thing was incredible. It was genreless. It had, and I'll let you tell everything that's on there. But for me, I can tell you the peak moment is a song you had on this playlist that took me back in time. And that was Souls of Mischief, 93 to Infinity.
Great record.
One of my favorite songs of all time. Sipping on Baby Blue with a good friend, and if that song comes on, I'm just gonna pass out from joy.
God, you picked a great record. That whole first Souls of Mischief record is fantastic, but that song, it's rare that you'll find anybody that likes any style of music that doesn't like that song on some level. It's a great song. That's a great choice. And a little known basketball fact, or maybe people know it.
Ooh.
The year that Ron Artest wore the number 93 that was him doing a shout out to that particular song by the Souls of Mischief.
Wow.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
There you go, right there.
Sure,
Yep.
there it is.
There it is. And Ben may or may not have had Opio in his car one time. That's a totally different story.
Oh,
Yeah, there you go. Okay, Jared, Texas single malt. In fact, if you want to pick any particular kind of Texas single malt, you can. But if we want to go with the classic edition,
I'll go with the classic. And you guys didn't do this. I assumed this was part of the scenario that we were gonna have to say who the friend was.
oh,
So I was racking my brain. But it's also pretty clear one of my best friends in the world. I don't see him often. He moved away a while back. This guy's name is Tim Carter. 2 reasons. He's the guy who was living in Oxford that turned me on to Scotch when he came back.
wow.
I'd had whiskey before and just never really cared for it. He was with me, bought me the whiskey that went ding. He also worked at the distillery in the early years, and his wife was going to grad school, and he left before we had ever made any liquid. So we made the thing with the single malt that we meant to make. He was on that path with us. Life went a slightly different direction, and he's living in Panhandle, Florida now, and never got to make whiskey with us, even though that was part of the dream. So me and Tim are going to sit around and drink this thing that he thought, 12 years ago, 11 years ago, we were going to be making together, that is finally in the world and exists and is wonderful. And he's a weird friend, and I'm probably a little bit of a weird guy, but I think what we probably would end up doing is sitting at that campfire that you talked about earlier, and we probably would not talk much. So unlike Alex's kind of, you need some bedding or you need some kind of rumbling in the back, I think we would put something on that we would actually kind of would help take the center stage. And partly because he died not too long ago, and I've been devouring his last 2 records, one which is posthumous record, a lot lately, but I would go with Leonard Cohen.
Oh, wow.
And really, you could probably just pick any record you want, but I've had the last 2 on rotation in the blending room for the last month or 2. But yeah, we'd sit and be quiet, and watch the fire crackle, drink the whiskey, and listen to the man Leonard drop truth on us.
That's fantastic. That is fantastic. All right, so I will throw mine out there, and it's it sounds very cliche to use this because it does kind of go with a single malt, but I would put on, it's probably, most people consider it the best jazz record of all time. Most people, if they like jazz, have it in their collection, but I love modal jazz. I love the Texas single malt, and I'd love to just sit there with a buddy and listen to Kind of Blue, Miles Davis record. Every song on there is incredible. And it's just a great, great mood to relax and imbibe. And if you want to converse, you converse. If you want to vibe out, you vibe out. So I know everyone on this panel believes that music and spirits go together. Fantastic.
oh yeah.
Absolutely.
So we'll probably make that a little staple of our whiskey talks.
Yes.
Enjoy. That's what this is about, man. You don't make it to go drink by yourself while traffic is over here. You make it to enjoy the good times together and vibe, and certainly good music's a big part of that. So we should say this, the next time we get together, we're going to do the Texas pot still bourbon, and we're going to do the Texas Rye 100, which may be the most underrated expression of Balcones. I don't know, maybe not. I know I go away from it when I go back to it, I'm like, holy crap, this is so good, man. How come I don't drink this more often? So if you want to be a part of our next one, we'll get all the information out to you via all our social media platforms. You'll know well in advance when the next one's coming. I think we're going to be doing it on April the 30th, is looking like when we're going to be doing that. But the Texas pot still bourbon and the Texas Rye 100 for the next one. What do you guys think about that?
I think it's awesome. And I do want to throw this out there to you guys too. We endorse you guys on our radio show, and we obviously love Balcones, as you can tell. But it makes us super proud to endorse you guys when the world is going through what we're all going through, and to see you guys step up, and especially how difficult it was to do, considering how unique your distillery is, for you guys to make sanitizer for the front lines, for first responders,
Incredible.
speaks volumes, and for you guys to actually care about the service industry and donate $5 per bottle back to the Bartenders Guild, up to 25 grand. It sincerely, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you, because we couldn't be more proud to partner with you guys. And it's things like that that truly show the heart of who you guys are. So just on behalf of all of our listeners and everybody, thank you guys.
Yeah, man, for sure. It's crazy times.
Yeah, this is great times. Okay, so we're about to sign off. Again, we'll let you know when the next one is. But before we do, I'll let Alex and Jared both say something before we boogie. If one of you guys want to step up and give us a parting shot here.
Well, I've got a couple of things I wanted to say to you guys before we go. So I got to, these are just completely, everyone else watching is going to be probably bored and this means nothing to them. But I don't get to see you guys that much anymore. So on Easter morning, obviously this Easter was a little different. Nobody's going to be with family. My 9-year-old daughter was getting a little upset that we weren't down in San Antonio with my wife's family and stuff, and the Easter egg hunt and all that stuff. And it just like, you get those little worms and these little earworm things, and it's like, man, I knew there was an AC Alone song that starts out with like, I don't know if you guys are AC Alone fans, but he's just like, yo, it's Easter. And I was like, what song is it? Anyway, I found it, and it's Rappers on Deck. But it's like a completely throwaway comment. I'm guessing he just recorded it on Easter. He's just like, yo, it's Easter. And then he starts rapping. But it made me remember AC Alone and how good, man, if anybody listening hasn't spent time with Book of Human Language, do yourself maybe one of the best rap records in the last 20 years.
He's an incredible lyricist. And it's funny you brought that up. I recently listened to All Balls Don't Bounce for the first time in like 15 or 16 years. And it still holds up. It's incredible.
It's still really good. Yeah. He's not super fast, but man, he's, and then the other thing I was just going to ask, if either one of you guys had watched LA Originals yet on Netflix.
I haven't.
No, what is it?
Yeah, it's cartoon and Esteban, tattoo artist, photographer, and all their connections with everybody from Snoop to Eminem to traveling with all the Soul Assassins, Cypress Hill gang, and
wow,
all
that's
that
cool.
stuff. And so it's a little documentary. It's kind of about them, but it's just as much about like LA hip hop. I mean, even Blink-182 and some other stuff's in there that I don't care about. But it's a solid. While we're waiting for another season of Hip Hop Evolution, I guess LA Originals will do. But,
absolutely, right on. I'll put it in the hopper for sure, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay,
Alex. Before we get out, one more thing. I do love how you guys listen to music in the distillery, and you'll really vibe with the music. And one time we were talking to you about DOC, and you were rocking DOC in the distillery, and I was like, DOC came to Skin's bachelor party at my house in Frisco.
Whoa!
And that was a crazy connection. And we got to tell DOC, who loves balcones, we got to tell him y'all were banging it in the distillery. He thought that was awesome.
Well, I was taking notes while we were talking about stuff, and I didn't bring up everything that I thought of. But you maybe not to read it there, but because you've told me he's going to come out to like events at least once or twice. Yeah, he has not come to anything. So
he'll do
Shots
it.
fired.
Guilty promises.
Yes.
All right, all eyes on you, Alex. Any parting shots?
No, well, actually, I wanted to turn it back on you guys because I've, as a homegrown homeboy here in the DFW area, I've been listening to you guys for over 10 years. I went to UNT, the Screaming Eagles, or I don't know. KT might know. Yeah, that's where me and my wife met, and she's hiding somewhere over there. But no, I love what you guys are doing for really the community, connecting folks, bringing people cool, just different, alternative content, if you will, if you want to use that silly C word, because I know everyone's using it. But I appreciate being associated with you guys, because I've been listening since back in the day. When I worked at a different company, I would break down and hide in order to be able to listen to the Landry locker room. So I like OG Tolo before Tolo was Tolo, and I just appreciate the connectivity you have with your fans, because I'm a fan and I happen to be connected on a little bit of a different level, and we can talk whiskey, we can talk life, we can talk music, and I really think that kind of embodies all things Balcones anyways. So I just love being able to talk about sports and life with you guys. So I appreciate what y'all are doing, because y'all are doing a lot of great things for a lot of people that are stuck at home. Some may be out of work, some may still get a paycheck, which is good, and we want to celebrate everybody in this capacity. So I thank you guys for this platform. So thanks,
Cheers.
Painted Skin.
Cheers. Let's cheers to this. A nice toast. Gentlemen, it's always a good thing when you look up and you go, oh, we went 20 minutes longer than we were supposed to, and we could keep
Oh,
going.
whoops.
No, it's rad because we like talking and imbibing with you. So hopefully the folks watching enjoyed it. We will be back on April the 30th. In the meantime, do what you can to get the Texas Pot Still Bourbon, because I love the backstory of that. And then, of course, the Rye 100. You're going to love. Oh, there you go right there. The Texas Rye 100. And we will be coming at you on all various social media platforms. He's Alex. He's Jared. That's Ben. Look at how handsome Ben is. And we'll see you next time on a little Whiskey Talk.
Boom.
Boom.